Hi, welcome back to Café Bluebeam. We're on video 4 now, and it's going to be the first of the series, and we're going to be seeing library specialty coffee. This coffee right here is from the Guji zone within the Oromia region in Ethiopia, and is named after that washing station that's actually quite famous within the region. Guji happens to be one of my personal favorite regions to drink coffee from. This coffee is a heirloom varietal and is grown at an altitude of 1,800 meters. I'm going to move this aside, and we're going to be revisiting the Hario V60 this time. And while we've done a previous V60 video, we're going to be showing a different brewing technique with it, because I thought it'd be neat that you're not actually held to just one standard technique, and it makes a great way to use brewing devices that you already have by exploring new techniques. Like we did previously, this is going to be with a paper filter, which I'm going to fold. Insert that into the brewer. And we're going to give it a rinse. And again, this just helps us remove the paper taste, just so it doesn't interrupt our brew. Once we have that rinsed, place it on my scale. And today's recipe also calls for 20 grams, and it's going to be ground like medium, just a little finer than that. The total weight that we're going to be using is 280 grams of water, so it's going to be a little shorter than last time. And that roughly works out to be a ratio of 14:1. Shaking it out to level out the grinds and to help, again, aiding with extraction. Alright, so today's technique, whereas we used the pulse method previously, we're now going to be using something called the single pour method. You saw me make an indentation last time, but this time I find the more appropriate tool is something like this, a chopstick. We're going to stir up the grinds, and it's going to help break up the clumps in the grounds. You'll notice I have it distributed a little different than I did previously. The method is going to be single pour, so as the name indicates, that we're going to be looking to pour all our water in one go. And I'm going to start the moment with the water. Pouring in concentric circles again. You'll notice I also am not opting to do a bloom, because this technique does not require it. But I am still going to pour in the same manner with the controlled circles, working inside to outside. And again, just being aware not to pour the water directly on the outside of the grinds where it will run down the side of the brewer. And as the coffee begins to saturate, I can begin to pick up my speed here. I'm looking to complete my pour and the brewing between a time of 1 minute 30 and 2 minutes. While we're waiting for this pour to finish, a fun fact that Ethiopia is actually the motherland of coffee. It's where all coffee originates. So whereas a lot of us tend to think that coffee comes from South America, I know I have that misconception. It actually originates from Ethiopia. So now that I've finished my pour, and the water levels are a little safe to do so, again, I'm going to stir, or in this case, I'm going to opt to swirl. Just to even out the coffee bed, again, leveling it out so that it aids with extraction. So coffee in the Guji region is known to be quite juicy, lighter in body, and for majority, a lot of the coffees that we see coming from Ethiopia, it's quite different than what we usually expect out of coffee. It's actually a lot more tea-like in its qualities, even in the mouthfeel. It's a lot lighter. Our coffee is just finishing the drawdown. Our coffee is finished drying down. I'm going to remove the filter. And let's have a taste. Like the other videos before, I'm going to give the coffee a little stir just to make sure everything's well incorporated. So, as we were talking before, coffee in this region is known to be quite tea-like in nature. And the tasting notes in this particular coffee are dried blueberries, plum, and white tea. Again, just pulling it over my tongue, carefully of course, because the coffee is hot. Same way you would, the techniques you use to taste wine. I noticed that there's quite a concentrated berry flavor. I'm not sure if I quite get the blueberry yet. It's a little bit tart. It's definitely juicy, kind of like this is where the plum is really coming through. And I really do taste the sweetness of a plum, almost kind of jammy-like as well, in that kind of similar sense of sweetness. And then on the nose, it's definitely floral. Almost reminds me of kind of like a chrysanthemum tea. And the body is nice and light. It's very clean, crisp, and refreshing. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to Café Bluebeam, a series of educational webinars that will help you get the most out of your Bluebeam Revu software. My name's Colin Gadet from SolidCAD, and I'll be your speaker. Today, we're going to look at Bluebeam as a software solution. And throughout this webinar series, we've explored a number of different aspects of the software, but we're going to take more of a 30,000-foot view in this session and take a look at kind of a direct compare and contrast between one of its North American competitors, Adobe, or more specifically Adobe Acrobat Pro. We're going to get into kind of the three different levels of Bluebeam and explore which one might be best suited for your company. Then we'll get into looking at how we can use Bluebeam for the different roles in our office. It doesn't just have to be for the engineering markups and revisions. It could also be used by our front office staff and general admin and things like that. And then we'll also look at wrapping this up with some of the licensing options, again, coming back to more of a direct compare and contrast between this and Adobe Acrobat Pro. As we dive into this software comparison, let's first set the stage. So we're going to be looking today at the Adobe Acrobat Pro, so the paid version of Adobe. And we're going to be comparing that against Bluebeam Revu, so the base level of Bluebeam. We're not going to be looking at Bluebeam Revu CAD or Bluebeam Revu Extreme. We're just sticking with the base level, so the base functionality that any Bluebeam Revu owner of the software will be able to have access to. And more particularly, let's take a look at some of the markups and edits that we can make within a document and how those will differ. Let's take a look at some of the estimating and comparison tools that we can use for documents, and some of the customization that we have in Bluebeam Revu, as well as collaboration online to do kind of a markup session where we can collaborate and mark up a drawing all together and bounce ideas off of each other using Bluebeam Studio. Let's pop over into Bluebeam and take a look at this. For those of you who are new to Bluebeam, this is the interface at its most basic. We can get a lot more complicated, but at the tips of your fingers, we have access to revision clouds, where we can zoom in and just create a simple revision around each one of these things. Once we create a revision, we also get different properties up at the top where we can change the color to, let's say, blue. We can change the size of the line and things like that. We have lots of different properties. And you have this control in Adobe as well. Where Bluebeam takes it to the next level though is in the tool chest. And if we open that up, you can see I've got a number of different tool sets with pre-configured markups in here. These can be created, added to the tool sets, and then actually shared out to everyone else in our organizations as well. And the key thing with this is the fact that we're able to come in here and let's take this Engineering Cloud Plus, for example. We'll create a cloud, and this just adds a little bit of text on top of it. So text for the dimension or something like that. Now, what's even better about this is every one of these markups has its own properties. So just below the tool chest, we've got access to the properties right here. And this will display differently for each markup that you're selecting. But we're able to come in here and get a lot more granular control over some of those same properties up at the top. Once we save all of this stuff, we can then put it back into the tool chest so that we have all of those properties pre-configured for ourselves. This type of customized markup tools is something that sets Revu apart. But we can take this one step further, and we've got a number of quantities measurement tools down here. So we're able to take a simple, let's go for a count measurement function right here. So we can take this check mark, and every time that I click this check mark and add it to the drawing, it adds to the number that we're counting here. So I counted 4 toilets there, for example, and that may be the case. So we'll click enter. And the power of this and the power of some of these other measurement tools is that all of that is tabulated, along with all of these other markups are all tabulated inside the markups list. And as we open this up, you can see that there's count measurements. So there were 4 toilets in there. There's the engineering markups. So it took that Cloud Plus that I've got. I can see the text for dimension. And we can tabulate all of our markups across a multi-page drawing or a multi-page PDF and be able to see them all and interact with them all and filter inside of the markups list. This type of tabulation and control over all of our markups is another huge advantage that Revu offers in comparison to some of its competitors. Because as we get into these markups lists and maybe flip to a drawing that's got, or a drawing set that's got a lot more markups in it, we may have markups coming in from contractors, we have markups coming in from engineers or other things like that. We're able to come in here and tabulate all of it right here. We're able to filter things out. So we're only looking at the contractors, or we only want to see things on page, whatever the case, or only authored by a certain person. We're able to pull all of that stuff within the markups list. We have really granular control over what we actually show within here. Now, another thing that really separates this apart is how many times have you gotten a drawing like this one, for example, and we can't tell the difference between version 1 and version 2. What has changed from version 1 to version 2? Well, in the Adobe software, we really don't have too many tools to fix that or figure that out. In Bluebeam Revu, we've got a great tool called Draw and Compare. If I go under Documents, I can go and compare documents. I can pick my first document and my second and click OK. And what it'll do is split the screen and show me the overlay to difference right here. So I'm able to identify very quickly, panning to both of them in the same location, that I've got an additional revision right here. I've got some trees added in here in revision 2 that weren't there in overlay 1 or the first revision of this. It's very, very quick to see the difference between 2 different drawings or 2 different versions of the same drawing. And that way we're able to identify revisions much more efficiently and help facilitate that communication between those project engineers and the design drafters or whoever the case to be able to move forward with our project in a much more efficient manner. So let's end this draw and compare. I won't save that. And we'll end this one as well, actually. Don't save. Now, the last part of this that's a huge difference between Adobe and Bluebeam Revu is Bluebeam operates a lot more like some of those engineering softwares like Civil 3D or AutoCAD, where we're able to go in and anything you see within here, we're able to customize the view of this interface. For example, if we have someone who's just signing and stamping documents, for example, they may not need these markups. They may not need to see the layers within here. So what we can do is actually just hide some of these things. We may not need to see some of the measurement tools, for example, so I can hide some of those. All of this stuff is very, very customizable within the display of the actual software itself. Do I like my markups list there? Or do I want to drag it somewhere else? Do I want to attach it maybe to the right-hand side over here? Well, now my markups list is over here instead. We don't need to see this guy. So anytime you need the markups list, it's off to the side over here. So we've got a lot more customization that we can do. And then we can come over here and actually just save this out as a profile. And then again, we can share that kind of profile maybe for the job description of the person who's going to need to use those tools. General office profile for Bluebeam Revu, or drafting designer for Bluebeam Revu, or project engineer for, you get the point. We're able to create those different profiles in here so that someone opens it up and has a very familiar and concise interface for the types of tasks that they need to perform. And then later on in another session of Café Bluebeam, we're going to talk about the Bluebeam Studio, but basically what this allows you to do is have an online collaboration session looking at a specific drawing or drawing set, where we can literally sit down as if we were in a board meeting with a giant 2x3 set of drawings and actually go through and mark this up and have everyone be able to collaborate on solutions for these design drawings. So Bluebeam Studio, again, is it's a collaboration tool and another tool that really sets it apart from its competition. So for the majority of this presentation, we've been talking about Revu Standard. That's what I mean when I say Bluebeam Revu. But there are two other kind of higher levels of Bluebeam Revu that will help you pull a little bit more efficiency out of the software and maybe necessary for some of the workflows that you're looking to incorporate. So Bluebeam Revu CAD and Revu Extreme. So at this point, I want to identify some of the differences between these three levels of the Revu software to see how each one fits into your workflows, and maybe we need one of the higher level ones because it offers us enough efficiency where it makes sense. Let's flip over into Bluebeam. And this is a cool little tool. If we hit Control-T, I can actually open up a browser inside of Bluebeam Revu. And if we go to the Bluebeam site, we can see the three different levels or different versions or flavors of Bluebeam Revu. And as we scroll down, I want to kind of note the key differences between each one of these. As the name would sort of suggest, Revu CAD offers a little bit more incorporation into some of our CAD design software with Revit, Civil 3D, SolidWorks, and AutoCAD, giving you additional plugins to be able to pull PDFs much more quickly out of those software. But Revu Extreme offers a lot more. We can scan images or raster PDFs and actually have those get converted to text searchable objects or text searchable PDFs using optical character recognition. So this is a pretty big thing that pushes people to use Revu Extreme. Along with that, we can implement scripting, and we can actually use forms. If you've ever used a tax form with specific text boxes that you're allowed to input your various information, those are the types of forms that we can actually create in Revu Extreme. Some of the key things to note is, as I mentioned before with Bluebeam Studio, all 3 versions have full access to Bluebeam Studio. And all 3 versions have full access to all of the various markup tools that are in Bluebeam. Where we start to see some of the difference is as we get into some of the page content editing and plugins, as well as some of the security where we're actually with Bluebeam Revu Extreme, we're actually able to redact documents. So not just put a black box over things, but actually remove the text out of that PDF and redact it properly. As we adopt Bluebeam at more of a global level within our organization, there's undoubtedly going to be a variety of different tasks that need to be completed within the software, and a variety of different users for the actual software itself. One of the best ways to go about doing this and setting this up is by customizing the user interface and saving out different profiles for the different tasks at hand. If I flip over into Bluebeam Revu, you can see I've got a lot of stuff open here. From an administrative standpoint, we don't really need to see the markups list, for example. So I can right click on the actual icon and I can hide that. From an administrative standpoint, I probably don't need all of these different tools within the tool chests. I'm not going to be performing quantities or adding design symbols. I don't need to see the engineering markups or contractor markups. So we can go up to the tool chest and actually start to hide some of these things. I don't need my tools, this one, this one, this one, but we'll keep kind of just the administrative tools. And as you can see, it starts to really condense and make it much more of a concise interface that we can work with. We're absolutely going to need to flip through the pages all the time, but from an administrative standpoint, we may not need access to the layers in the PDF. So I can right click here and hide the measurement tools, hide Studio, for example. And we can set all of this up. We probably need access to forms if we have a Revu Extreme. But we can set all of this up just like this so that when we open it, we've got 2 necessary tools. We've got the signatures area if we needed to help sign documents or facilitate that. And what we can do once we've set that up is actually save that out as a profile, like I had mentioned earlier. Down in Profiles, under Revu, we can go to Manage Profiles, and I can actually add one in here. And I can call this Administrative, for example. We click OK, and now that's another profile within here. And actually, I'll just delete this one, as I'll show you how to import and export. But what this comes down to now is we've got a cluttered mess here and someone opened this up. Well, to get back to my administrative setup so that I can do those sorts of tasks, I can go to Revu, Profiles, and click Administrative, and it brings this up as the concise interface that I need to complete some of those high-level tasks that way. If I needed those engineering notes like I just deleted, maybe I need to go to Profiles and Manage Profiles. We can actually import another profile that's on, usually we suggest kind of a common server that everyone can access. So I'll just scroll up here and you can actually save out Bluebeam profiles. So I've grabbed this engineering review and click open. We'll take this one here and click OK. And now my engineering review profile is in here. So all I do is just toggle to that profile and I'm set up with all of my engineering review notes, all of my quantity measurements, and my markups list and everything ready to go. So far in this session, we've taken a look at kind of a direct comparison between Revu and its competitors and how Revu has a lot of benefits to it that the competitors just don't really have with respect to some of the estimating, comparing documents, and markup and editing tools that can then be tabulated inside of the markups list. We've also taken a look at differentiating between the 3 different flavors of Bluebeam Revu so that we can help better identify which version of it may be necessary for the different personnel in our organization. And then we've also looked at setting up those interfaces and customizing the interface so that we can better use it for the different tasks at hand or the different personnel in our organization. Now, to finish this off, let's put on our accountant's hat because I want to talk about licensing options. And it's pretty straightforward. Bluebeam Revu is a single user licensing model. So with Revu, there's an upfront cost and then a much smaller annual maintenance fee. And the way that adds up is if we compare it directly to the latest numbers I have from Adobe Acrobat Pro, which are $299 a year, you can quickly see from the graph that it saves you money within 2 years. So not only is this a product that's more equipped to deal with the engineering world of manipulating PDFs, it also costs less in the long run.